Hello and welcome to Malawi Today, another very interesting time where we look at very important issues affecting us, the citizens of this beautiful country, Malawi. My name is Philip Ziganyanga. Today in the program, I'll be talking to Mr. Robert Mkwezalamba, the Executive Director for Human Rights Consultative Committee. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
We want to critically discuss and analyze some very important issues. Specifically, we do much on the elections. The elections are very much close. In 2019, we'll be going for the tripartite elections. And the political landscape, the political environment is changing each passing day. It's becoming hot. We have seen some very interesting things, and we should expect even more as the elections keeps approaching. So I want to understand from your perspective, how should the citizens embrace this new political environment?
Well, thank you very much for a good topic. Maybe to begin with, we may want to appreciate Section 40 of our Republican Constitution, which guarantees that every person has the right to make political choices. By making that provision, it tells us that the framers of the Constitution envisaged a situation where we have multiplicity of political parties, and to allow people to fully participate, then they were entitled to make their own choices. That is, which party to belong to, which party to belong to. As we head towards 2019, we would want, in our view, the citizens not to be carried away, per se, not to be carried away. They have high expectations, because every time there's a new person in your life, you would want to appreciate, and you feel maybe this is my destiny, this is a solution. In the political circles, the new life for every person is when you are approaching an election, because you have a strong belief that whatever happens there, my life too will change. You have a situation where you have 17 million Malawians. Mm-hmm. You will not know whether all the 17 million Malawians will vote for the party that you want. So the process between the declaration that there will be an election and the actual election, it is indeed a very hostile environment, very difficult and challenging situation. And this is why we're saying the citizens have to grasp and be accommodative of the situation. They need to keep their ears open to listen to everyone and anyone who feels they can say and deliver for the country, but hold themselves to an extent to issues of anger, to reprimand themselves, to know their limits. How far can I go in celebrating or associating? Or how far can I limit my expectations? Because if you are not able to control your expectations, then you produce outbursts. You speak out, and in speaking, you realize you are injuring other people's rights. And in injuring other people's rights, that's what breeds issues of violence. Violence doesn't just start. It starts by how certain individuals behaved in a situation where they're not supposed to behave themselves. So we are saying, or in my view, I would say, as we're heading towards the 2019 polls, the first part is for people to hold themselves, to take in more, and maybe speak less. Let the politicians talk.
All right. Maybe before you proceed, you have talked of people injuring one another. You also raised an issue to do with violence, and of late we have witnessed, or we have heard of some sorts of violence taking place. We can, for example, cite what happened in Mkwezalamba. where the two vehicles belonging to UTM were touched down. And not only that, we have also heard of several other incidences. For example, people being beaten up by some party followers, kind of those things. I want to understand, what's your take, or what kind of picture are we painting with that kind of behavior as we approach the elections?
Yes, it goes back to what I said earlier on, to say the starting point for you as an individual is to look at what's in for me. What is it that I will benefit from this process as an individual? Will my life go forward, or will it go down by my association or my actions? One thing we tend to forget is that by default, by being born Malawians, almost everyone was MCP in this country. Whether one likes it or not, we were all Malawi Congress Party until maybe 1994-95. But from there to date, we have over 54 political parties. And these political parties have been led by individuals coming from all the 27 districts of Malawi. The picture I'm trying to paint is that there was some form of tolerance as we are moving towards multipartyism. But for us to reach a level where we are able to start burning people's vehicles or using threats or beating people, it means we have lost a direction somewhere. Our reasoning or our agenda may not be the right one for the people that we want to lead or those that we want to support us. Because that will only happen when people are resistant to change or to take in more information. Remember, I said people need to listen more, talk less. That also applies to acting. Before the incidents in Mangochi, you could hear some sentiments, for instance, that this is our area, this is a no-go zone for Party X. This is our area. No two ways about it. Now, to have an incident of that sort, if I was a police officer, I would first suspect those who said, this is our area, no one can come here. But what that tells us is that we're heading for disaster. It is not acceptable because all persons have the right to freely associate. Though the people who are attending the UTM rallies, or those that went to attend, not all of them would you say that they are supporters of the movement. They would want to understand, what is the movement all about? What new ideas are they bringing? They are saying they are different from the rest or the past. What is it that they are showing to be different from the rest? So people will go there to listen. Others will go there because they are in support of the agenda, because the party has, the association has been rolled out the past month, if I can put it so. You may have heard what they said in Masinta or Blanta. So people are associating themselves. Others, that's their location. They stay there. They are in Mangochi. They have no choice. The function is taking place within a kilometer. I have nothing to do. Let me just go. I'm not a fan of politics. Let me just go. That's a normal democratic society. That's how environments are supposed to be. Even those who are belonging to other political structures like parties, they are also free to attend. They listen, they can even copy the ideas and give it to their party to say, our friends want to do this. Can you change this and do this? Advise their party. But to reach the extent of burning people's vehicles or otherwise, what it meant was to scare them off, to tell them they are not welcome. But you and me will agree that those who may have burnt the vehicles may not have been more than 20 or thereabout. But Mangochi may have a population of over 150,000 people. Now, to burn a vehicle, trying to think that you are sending a message that this organization is not wanted here, it is a mistake, because you are simply now inviting more people to support, to say, if a child is told fire burns, they would want to test it. What do they mean? So they will touch charcoal, and when they are burnt, that's when they realize, oh, okay, this is it. The same applies if they're burning their vehicle. It means this is a good thing. Let us join, let us follow up, let's be there to understand why it has to have all this resistance. So you may think you are closing them out, not knowing that you are promoting them indirectly. But for our political future, it's unacceptable, it's unfortunate, and it needs to be condemned.
Okay, maybe looking at the law enforcers, how they have been acting in such kind of scenarios, because as I said earlier on, the Mangochi incident wasn't the first one. We have had several incidences happening. For example, we had the vehicle of Honorable Jessica Bwira touched down at Lidongwe Golf Club. The vehicle of Honorable Bonnie Kalindo was also touched down. How can you rate the work of the law enforcers, like the police, for example, how they have been reacting to such kind of scenarios?
I would say the police have let us down, have completely failed us. To an extent, I may depart, but I simply would want to, for once, maybe appreciate, for instance, what the Anti-Corruption Bureau has of recent been doing, going to the public on matters that are under investigation, or those that may have leaked, but they came into open. We would expect and want institutions of governance to be more open to the public, to people, for people to know what is happening and what they have been able to do. The police, if we can list cases that they have not been able to disclose to the public, they're numerous. The Nzuzu incident, where political parties, there was a fight there, and we are mentioning the Kalindo issue, the Bon Kalindo, the Honorable Kabira's vehicle. What they don't know is the fact that the more they don't act, is the more they are compelling people to take the law in their own hands. Simply because people know that the right people to handle these differences or these issues are the police. But if we catch a thief, we present to police, the person is released within hours, maybe from orders from above or just by practice that they are released. Then people will be forced to say, when we grab a thief, we need to deal with him or her. So when it comes to political violence, a person who is caught trying to disturb a political function, the part of party functions or security, they will deal with that person right there. The police will come just to collect a dead body, and that's not what we want.
Mob justice.
But yes, but the problem, in my view, would still be the police. I can cite the same situation in Mangochi to say police failed us. How? We learned of a first vehicle being burnt around 10 o'clock in the evening. In my little knowledge of security, by that time police should have mounted serious roadblocks. The whole Mangochi, even before UTM team went there, mind the vice president of the country is going there, you should have expected some roadblocks, high security, tight security. That may not have happened. But you had an incident where first vehicle was burnt around 10 o'clock. I don't know if there is any information that said police did this after that incident. And you had another one burnt around 2 a.m. That tells you the guys who burnt the first vehicle must have been going around.
They had enough time.
Exactly. Because by that time, 10, 11, police should have been apprehending or stopping anyone who is loitering in the streets. Where are you going? Even vehicles, stopping them at this hour, where are you going? In that process, they would have discovered one or two things. But until 2 o'clock, another vehicle is burnt. 6 o'clock, nothing has happened, no one has been apprehended, and Mangochi is a small district. If you can ask me, there may be one main road, as opposed to Area 18 or Capital City. You have so many routes you can escape, but Mangochi, there are few roads which you can control, you can stop, you can block, and be able to contain cordon off people within that area. So our police need to change their way of handling things or dealing with violence or incidents like this of this nature. We are going to 2019. I've said over 50 political parties. Meetings will now be held back to back. They will have to overstretch their resources if they handle political violence with kids' gloves. We can forget about free, fair, credible elections next year, because that will mar our elections in this country. And the police have a role to play. Not make and just make a directive, but before they make a directive, police have to be central in controlling and curbing the violence.
We have to go for a short break.
Thank you.
In case you are just joining us, we are inside Malawi today, and today we are very much privileged because we are hosting Mr. Robert Mkwezalamba, the Executive Director of Human Rights Consultative Committee. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. We are continuing with the program. We are inside Malawi today. My name is Philip Ziganyanga. And today, as I indicated earlier on, I'm with Mr. Robert Mkwezalamba, Board Chairperson of Human Rights Consultative Committee. Mr. Mkwezalamba, a few months ago, we are celebrating 25 years in democracy. But to this moment, it seems some people don't really appreciate the tenets of democracy. Like, for example, talking of multiplicity of political parties, diversity of views. What do you think should be done to make sure that we are all in the same boat? Talking of all the citizens, we are speaking one language, and we are also in one track, in as far as our democracy is concerned.
Yeah, there are several things that needs to be done. I would say as civil society, we have played quite a number of roles to sensitize the population, because what is key and critical is to conscientize and sensitize the public to understand their roles and responsibilities in a democratic society. Where your rights end, that's where somebody's rights also begin. If we're able to appreciate that, then we'll be able to curb, for instance, violence or sustain the democracy that we fought for in 1992-94. What the public needs to be taught or to be sensitized on is the governance of state, and is part of our constitution, is derived from the people of Malawi. That is to say, you cannot be a leader without the people mandating you to be one. So all the presidents, the MPs, the councillors, they are so because of the citizens of Malawi. So if citizens of Malawi start realizing that they are the sole reasons why politicians exist, then they'll be able to transform the environment into a democratic society. They'll be able to accept each other. Because if a politician tells me, go and burn such political party's flag, and then I tell them, no, I cannot do that, because they have the right to mount that flag on that post. If citizens begin to question their leaders to say, you are giving us this beer so that we cause havoc at this political party rally, don't those guys have rights to? Because remember, after the incident, you still remain a Mangochi resident. The people you are beating, you are slicing, are still Mangochi residents, and they will be at Mangochi District Hospital. The politicians who leave the environment, you still face the same friend, the same person. We need to see ourselves in others to be able to appreciate our differences. Because if you feel for them, tomorrow they will feel for you, and we'll continue growing as a nation. This is where we say democracy is to an extent growing, but mostly our friends, the politicians, who are sort of trying to abuse the citizens because of lack of knowledge. in some instances, but also due to capacity challenges. They are not empowered. Most Malawians are not economically empowered to live their own lives. Because if you have something to do, you will not be able to indulge yourself into such issues of violence, or you will not resist other political parties. You allow them to come, but you show your political party prowess or powers. You say, no, you are saying you do this, our party is doing this or can do this. You challenge based on issues and facts. Mangochi, maybe we need boats, speed boats on the lake. If someone brings the speed boats, we need access to the lake, because now the people who have developed along the lake, they are refusing and denying us access to the lake to fish. If somebody comes and says, give access to the citizens, to the locals within the lakeside, people and I will be able to support that. But for me to completely close someone who have not heard his or her ideas, then the nation will not prosper and will not grow. So the starting point should be individual self. How can I contribute to this process of building our nation led by our leaders? What should I tell my leader to do in my area? Or what should he do to me, to empower me, to be able to empower others, so that as a community we can grow progressively and successfully, as opposed to simply being used to block other political parties or being used to block other leaders. I will still remain in the dark.
So with this political landscape, or with this political environment at hand, what's the role of the political leaders? Because now and again we have heard the president lamenting of castigating ways coming from the political leaders from various political parties. How should the leaders carry themselves with this environment to avoid maybe some of the things we have already highlighted on, like violence and others?
Leadership is leading by example. What you say as a leader has a lasting impression in the people that follow you. If, for instance, a leader, you are using obscene languages or vulgar words or destructive sort of sentiments, your followers will look at that and feel that is normal. But what you're doing is you're inculcating a bad attitude and habit on your followers, because they will emulate and do the same to their church leaders. They will do the same to their husbands and wives. They will do the same to their children. And it goes back to the community. What type of community are you building, or nation are you building? Our leaders need to learn the type of words that they can say. They need to be able to say something which, if they are waking up midnight, they'll be able to say the same thing. I want this to be done. But most importantly, they need to get away and get rid of hate speech. Let people use issues or debate issues. We're saying issues agenda. What is it that you can do for the people? Not what Mr. So-so didn't do. Because everyone will be able to defend themselves. I didn't do this because of A, B, C, D, F, G. And we'll spend more time justifying why certain things were not done. All you need to do is to identify a problem and suggest a solution, or find a way of dealing with that problem. And that's the major role that politicians have. And mind you, most of the times, our politicians are not the ones who do the job. It is us, ordinary citizens, who do the job. You become a president, the civil servants are the ones who implement the policies that you formulate. So it is important for the civil servants to understand what role they have to play in transforming the political statements that are made into action on the ground. So for me, a politician shouldn't really use bad words if we are to nurture successful and progressive leaders now moving forward, or even in our future, our children to emulate to become politicians. Because that's where violence starts. If you are talking about violence, if I insert another political party leader, that political party leader would want to revenge, and in revenging, you are exchanging words. So you spend more time arguing or exchanging words instead of discussing the real issues that affect the people on the ground.
Okay, to something a little different. Voter registration is currently underway. We are in should be the third phase.
Going to fourth phase.
Going to fourth phase. Currently, Blantyre, Mwanza, and Jikwawa it's been implemented, and recently MEC, the Malawi Electoral Commission, announced that they have so far registered about 2.6 million people against the projected 3 million. Are you satisfied with the figures and how the whole process is being implemented from the first phase, where we had several problems,
challenges?
Yeah, sure.
Satisfaction may not be a good word, but are we doing the right things? I would say yes, we are moving in the right direction. Things, when they are starting, there are always challenges. And the people, naturally, we have a challenge to say when things are starting, we don't want to be the first ones, we would like to be the last ones. So you open voting or registration on 1st September, you close at 7, I would like to go on the 7th. Whereas if you go the 1st, you'll be able to send a good message to say you're not taking even 1 minute, it's less than 30 seconds, you scan the Zika card, the national ID card, and then automatically you are given another receipt to say you are registered. You see? So in terms of the process, I would say it had challenges at the beginning, but it had to do with awareness. As CSOs, coming from the CSOs, the concern is that our development partners have not been forthcoming to, for instance, release resources to allow NGOs to go in the communities to sensitize people to register. We are leaving it to the politicians, and of course, National Initiative for Civic Education with the European Union support, they are also doing their part. But we needed more people to be sensitizing people to say, this is your opportunity. If you feel something is not right in your life and you want the government to do certain things for you, this is an opportunity to participate in a process where you elect a leader you feel can deliver or can do something for you. We have always said bad leaders are elected by people who don't vote. By not registering, you not have the right to vote. So we may have challenges now because others are saying, I don't see the reason. I listened somewhere, they were saying, I have not registered because since 1994, my leader has not won. The person he has been voting for has never won.
Of course, those are the kind of issues which are coming in.
Exactly. So you're saying, no. For now, before they leave your area, go and register and keep your registration card as you're contemplating on which leader to vote for this time. So it will not help you to make a decision in May next year to say, now I'm voting for this person when you did not register. So the starting point for you to make a choice and decision about your future is to start now where the registration is taking place and keep the card safe. Then when time comes, you will have made a decision. We have more than 8 months, which are enough for you to make a decision on who to vote for. This is why we are saying if you listen to what they are saying, issues that speak to your needs, you'll be able to know and identify yourself with that particular leader. So I think that one is talking to issues that are central to my life. I think I'll give him or her that vote. For me, even if you vote for a person who loses an election, you have won. We said democracy has won, but it is you because you have been part and parcel of the process. If you didn't vote, the other person would have won unanimously. They'll call it 99%. But there's need to be seen that there is a competition, and that will also trigger and motivate the new leader to say it was a stiff competition. Let me not take these people for a ride, because then he knows or she knows that next time I'll be in for a ride. These people will take over from me. So they behave normally in the interest of the people, because the more you save the people, the more votes you're going to get.
Before we conclude, and in very, very brief on this same issue of voter registration, it has been universally accepted by almost all the stakeholders that we had challenges in the first phase of this process. Would it be right if we decides to go back, for example, in the 3 districts who are involved in the first phase, to redo the whole process altogether?
Yeah, we would have no problem if that was done and if resources permit. Because the unfortunate part, they always work with a budget, and by going back it may mean an extra budget for allowances of staff that are going to be there. And if staff are not adequately paid in terms of the allowances, they are the ones who confuse the counting now when it comes to counting of the votes. But we'll have no problem if it goes back, even all the districts that they have done the exercise. Because the more you're getting close to the end, the more people understand. People sometimes are slow to think or slow to comprehend to issues. Also, this exercise is not about Nzika. It's about the elections. Are they now go to register? But if they are told, we closed yesterday, then they'll wash their hands and say, then it's okay, you can decide for me next year. So if there's an opportunity to go back to pass through the whole areas, you may of course select a few central positions within each district just to try and get 1 or 2. I can guarantee you can get maybe even 10% of the total registered voters in those areas, because there are still people who felt maybe I needed to be convinced why I should register. So would recommend that, yes, let's do that. If it is for the interest of all Malawians, let's do that. Even if we register 10 million Malawians to vote, that's a fair figure, as opposed to the figures we always get, 5 million versus 15 million people. It may not be representative enough for a leader to say, I'm representing 15 million when only 3 million people voted.
Okay, Mr. Mkwezalamba, time would not allow us to continue. We have to stop here. Thank you very much for showing up in the program.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
I'm afraid we will not be able to proceed beyond that point. My name is Philip Ziganyanga, and in today's program I was talking to Mr. Robert Mkwezalamba, board chairperson of the Human Rights Consultative Committee. Till the next edition, the other week. Bye for now.